Lily had always believed that moving into an old house was the key to a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the chaos of city life and embrace something timeless. When she and James finally purchased the charming, slightly worn home on the outskirts of town, it felt as if they were stepping into a story that was waiting to be told. The house, with its creaking floors and faded wallpaper, exuded history and whispered secrets of bygone eras. On the very first day, while James busied himself with unpacking boxes and setting up the living room, Lily wandered from room to room. She ran her fingertips over the worn banister, traced the delicate floral patterns on the wallpaper, and paused at the family portraits that lined the long hallway. Each face in those portraits seemed to hold a mystery, a lingering presence that went beyond mere decoration. Outside, the overgrown garden and distant, rolling hills hinted at nature reclaiming what was once grand, a quiet reminder that time spares nothing. That evening, as a golden sunset filtered through the lace curtains, James prepared dinner in the kitchen with his customary focus. Lily, however, found herself increasingly drawn to the subtle details of the home, the soft creak of the wooden floorboards, the distant hum of an old clock ticking in a corner, the strange feeling that she was not alone, even when she was. Over dinner, while the clink of cutlery punctuated the silence, Lily's mind was busy assembling the fragments of an unspoken history that seemed to linger in every shadow. She wondered, what stories had these walls witnessed? And what echoes from the past were now stirring in the quiet of her new home? In the weeks that followed, life in the new house settled into a steady, if not entirely comforting, routine. Mornings began with soft light streaming through the windows, and evenings were filled with quiet conversations that barely scratched the surface of deeper emotions. Yet for Lily, something was undeniably off. The home seemed to breathe with its own life, whispering secrets in the stillness of the night. It started with the small, seemingly insignificant things. While dusting one afternoon, Lily discovered an old, leather-bound journal tucked away behind a stack of books in the study. The pages were yellowed and filled with flowing script that recounted moments of joy, despair, and regret. In one entry, a name was scrawled repeatedly, James. Confused, she set the journal aside, wondering if it was a coincidence or an intentional clue. Over time, more anomalies emerged. An antique locket hidden in a crevice of a mantelpiece, faded letters sealed with wax and tucked beneath loose floorboards, and strange symbols carved subtly into the wooden banister. Each discovery sent a ripple of unease through Lily. Late at night, she would lie awake, listening to the soft echoes of footsteps in the hall and the distant murmur of voices that might have been the memories of the house's former inhabitants. One particularly stormy night, as rain lashed against the window panes and thunder rumbled in the distance, Lily sat in the parlor poring over the journal and letters. The more she read, the more she felt as though she were piecing together a puzzle that spanned decades. The words spoke of love lost, of secrets buried, and of a past that refused to remain silent. And through it all, the recurring mention of James, his youthful mistakes, and a hidden life before he met her, gnawed at her heart with a mix of dread and curiosity. Unable to suppress her growing suspicions, Lily began to confront the quiet dissonance that had invaded her life. One crisp autumn evening, as the amber light of dusk filtered through the aging windows, she decided to approach James about the strange relics scattered throughout the house. James, she began hesitantly while they sat in the living room, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. There's something about this house, about these letters and diaries I've found. They mention your name, your past. I need to understand what I'm reading. James's face paled as he listened. His eyes, usually so steady and kind, betrayed a flicker of pain and regret. For a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he spoke in a low, trembling tone. "Lily, there are things in my past that I never wanted to burden you with. I thought I had left that life behind." "Then what happened, James? Who were you before I met you?" she pressed, her voice both gentle and insistent. With a heavy sigh, James excused himself and retreated to his study. Hours later, when the clock chimed softly, he returned. The weight of his silence had become unbearable. Sitting down opposite her, he confessed in a voice laden with remorse, "I was young and foolish. I made terrible choices, a part of a world I now regret. I was involved with people and deeds I'm not proud of. I tried to bury that part of myself when I met you. But these relics, they've brought everything back." Lily listened, her heart aching with both sympathy and fear. The man she loved now was so different from the one who had once been involved in dangerous liaisons and secret sins. And yet, the evidence scattered around the house painted a picture that was impossible to ignore. The past, it seemed, was not dead, it was merely waiting in the shadows to resurface. In the wake of James's confession, an atmosphere of uncertainty settled over the home. For days, the couple navigated a fragile truce, attempting to reconcile the present with the shadows of the past. Lily pored over every scrap of evidence she could find, while James appeared to be haunted by memories he'd long tried to forget. The house, once a sanctuary of new beginnings, now vibrated with tension and sorrow. Late one evening, as a gentle rain began to fall and the wind whispered through the trees outside, Lily found herself drawn to a locked door in the basement. It was inconspicuous, a door hidden behind old boxes and dust, but something about it beckoned her. With trembling hands, she managed to pick the lock and descended the creaking stairs into a dimly lit space. Inside, the room was filled with relics from a bygone era, faded photographs, newspaper clippings, and personal effects that had clearly belonged to someone important. Among these was a sealed envelope addressed to James, in handwriting she recognized from the letters in the journal. Heart pounding, she opened it to find a single, typed page. The document detailed an unsolved murder, a brutal crime that had taken place in this very house decades ago. The victim, as the paper revealed, was a woman whose identity was obscured by time, but one detail chilled Lily to the bone. A photograph attached to the article showed a striking resemblance to a woman in one of the old portraits in the hallway. Lily's mind raced. Was it possible that James's past was not only filled with secrets, but with crimes that had left deep, irreversible scars on those involved? The more she read, the more she realized that the letters and diaries were not just remnants of a troubled youth. They were the echoes of a terrible event that had never been resolved. Determined to find the truth, Lily confronted James the next morning. The soft morning light did little to ease the cold dread that had settled in her heart. "James, I found something in the basement, a letter about a murder, and evidence that you were connected to it," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the tremor inside. James's face drained of color. For a long, agonizing moment, he remained silent. Finally, he confessed once more, his voice barely audible. "I never wanted to hurt anyone, Lily. But I was entangled in something far beyond my control, a situation that spiraled into violence. I thought I had escaped that life, but now it seems the past has caught up with me." Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she tried to process the revelation. Their love, their future, everything was now overshadowed by the grim truth that had haunted the house for decades. Yet, in that moment of raw vulnerability, there was also a glimmer of hope. Perhaps understanding the full extent of James's past could be the first step toward healing. They spent the day searching for more clues, piecing together newspaper articles, old photographs, and personal letters that hinted at a tragic romance and a betrayal that had ended in a senseless murder. With each discovery, the mosaic of James's former life grew darker and more complex. On a stormy night several days later, as thunder rattled the windows and the wind howled like a chorus of lost souls, Lily and James sat together in the study. They had resolved to face the ghosts of the past head-on, determined to break the cycle of silence and fear. James promised that he would do whatever it took to make amends, to put the shattered pieces of his former life to rest. Lily, torn between love and horror, vowed to stand by him as they uncovered the truth. As the clock neared midnight, the atmosphere in the room grew eerily charged. In a final act of desperate courage, Lily decided to open one last box she had found in the basement, a box hidden away behind a false wall. Inside, she discovered a collection of personal items, a faded diary, a locket with a photograph, and a bundle of letters tied together with a red ribbon. With trembling hands, Lily read through the diary. Its pages were filled with the raw emotions of a woman who had loved deeply and lost everything. The entries revealed a passionate, doomed affair with a man whose name was not James but eerily similar, one that had been erased from the official records. As she reached the final entry, her blood ran cold. The writer of the diary described the night of a brutal confrontation, the sound of shattering glass, and a final, desperate plea for forgiveness. The diary ended abruptly with the words, "He will never forgive me, and neither will you." Lily's heart pounded as she realized the horrifying truth. The woman in the locket was the victim of that murder, a woman who had been deeply in love with the man James had once been, a man who had turned to darkness. But then, a final, shocking twist emerged. In a handwritten note tucked between the pages, signed with a name that sent shockwaves through Lily's mind, was written, "I was the one you left behind. I was your secret." Before she could fully comprehend, footsteps echoed in the corridor. James entered the study, his face a mask of anguish and resignation. When Lily confronted him with the diary and the note, his eyes filled with tears as he finally revealed the unthinkable. Years ago, before he had met Lily, he had been involved in a torrid, forbidden relationship with a woman whose existence was kept hidden from everyone. That woman had been his secret love and his greatest mistake. Her death had been ruled an accident by the authorities, but James knew the truth. It had been a crime of passion that he had desperately tried to bury. The evidence in the diary and the locket were not just relics of a bygone romance. They were the lasting proof of a sin that had haunted him ever since. As lightning illuminated the room, a sudden, bone-chilling sound came from the corridor, a soft, mournful wail that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The lights flickered, and in that brief moment of darkness, Lily thought she saw a spectral figure standing at the door. When the lights returned, the figure was gone, but the presence of something otherworldly lingered. James fell to his knees, overcome with guilt and terror. "I've lived with this secret every day, hoping it would never resurface," he sobbed. "I thought I could outrun my past, but now it has come for me, and maybe for us." Lily, shaken to her core, realized that the echoes of the past were not merely memories confined to yellowed pages and dusty relics. They were alive, manifesting in the very fabric of the house. And as the storm raged outside, she understood with a sinking dread that the true horror was only beginning. The ghost of that long-forgotten love, the victim of betrayal and violence, had not yet found peace. Now, with the final truth revealed, the restless spirit's vengeance and the curse it carried would demand a reckoning. In that moment, as thunder shook the foundation of the house, the unthinkable became clear. The the past was not dead, and it was coming to claim its due in a way that would shatter everything Lily and James had ever known.